Hi, this is Amy Lewis with PopUpTechTalks. I'm here with Richard. Richard, can you introduce yourself?
Amy, I'm Richard Bliss, Executive Social Strategy at NetApp.
Excellent. So I have to admit, we have an ongoing discussion about the suits versus the hoodies in social media. And I know there's been some things in society lately that have changed maybe your perspective or changed the world's perspective on the use of social.
Yeah, that's a good point, because oftentimes we see social as a bunch of small communities, niche communities talking to each other, or as an outbound single method of 140 character press releases, right? It's either, marketing's using it to talk at people, techies are using it to kind of talk to each other. But what happened here in this past short amount of time, what we saw with the US election is we saw the power of somebody with the microphone, so to speak, being able to use social to form public opinion and change, in some ways, so much of the way society views things. So social, we see it being used for good or evil, either way, that it now has the power, it's kind of caught people's attention, that the power that it can be used to wield incredible influence.
So how can people in business take this to heart and say, okay, this isn't just a bunch of people talking about their breakfast, although that's important. How can they take that on as a medium they bring into their lives and harness that power?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of things. That's a kind of a complex answer. There's a couple of reasons why. So, for example, as I talk to people, oftentimes they'll say, well, my executive isn't on social, and I ask them why, and the answers that they come up with are fairly universal, and they tend to be the three same answers every time. One, they don't have the time. Two, they're not interested in the conversation that's going out there. They don't want to be a billboard to just project. And third one is that they don't. This comes from executives also. They don't feel that they have anything to say, and this comes from a comfort level of actually being out there talking on a regular basis, not behind any type of press or marketing or media or anything like that. So this is a new experience. But what's happening then is that when I sit down and talk to them, one of the things that I remind them is that, and this comes from a younger generation, and that is the inability to use a 21st century communication tool calls into question your ability to lead a 21st century organization, right? As the people who you're leading, they're using these tools in their everyday life, and if you're my generation, it's the executive who couldn't put paper in the copier, right? Who didn't know how to use their own phone or voicemail, that type of thing. I mean, it goes way back, but that's kind of what we're experiencing today. And so now, those three questions are the three things that I answer on a regular basis, kind of like a Mythbusters. No, those three things do not apply to your executives.
So how do they find the time? Let's give us the...
How do they find the time? Well, oftentimes here's a key thing. When you see traditional, particularly social media training, it often starts with some long PDF and sit down at the desktop or the laptop, and here's how we're going to teach you how to use social. But I don't know if you've noticed, most executives, they don't have time to sit at their laptop and actually just kind of play. So
they're not the patient types?
I have no comment on that. But what they do have is their mobile device, and so you start there. And by integrating, they're already taking pictures with their kids, they're probably on Facebook oftentimes, and so it's just a simple extension of their daily activity already, and it's helping them just simply be aware of, you're doing something, capture a picture with a partner or an event, or even just a casual thing, because a lot of times executives are fascinated or quite surprised by the fact that people they lead are fascinated with every aspect of their personal life, not just their professional life. And that takes some getting used to if you're an executive who's been used to kind of moving up through the ranks, particularly in the tech industry, where we're so used to talking about tech, and that's our safe spot. And so finding that time is a critical part of just saying, look, you're on your device, let me teach you how to just simply begin using that to engage in the conversation.
As I like to say, check your last 10 tweets, and if you wouldn't follow yourself, then you might want to make a change.
And then they say, what's a tweet? Okay, so that's where we start, right? Start with some basic stuff. And then the second one is, so they don't have the time. Yes, they do. Help them find that time. They don't have to be tweeting all the time or blogging every day, but just begin to integrate and make part of the conversation. The second thing is, they don't find it relevant. One of our executives that I work with has said when he didn't want to start on Twitter, he said, I don't want anything to do with the Kardashians. I don't care about the Kardashians. Why would I be on Twitter? Once he became on Twitter, he now has, I think, 12 to 15,000 Twitter followers, and he came to me and was amazed at the conversations that he's engaged with and the people that he's meeting that he would have never imagined would be out there having these discussions about a wide range of topics that he's interested in, from sports to college things to kids to business to trends. All of that is in this ongoing conversation that's out there.
I love that, and saying that it's an integrated part of your life, because we often joke that, the Pope, the Dalai Lama, everybody's out there. You don't know who you'll meet. It's not just a Kardashian. And the guy next door who's interesting.
And it becomes quite surprising for people who are new to this, particularly executives, that if you say something, they'll say something back. Salespeople also, as they're starting to embrace with the social thing, is they won't answer your cold call. They probably won't respond to your newsletter or your email, but they will not ignore you on social. I mean, it's kind of a peer pressure shame thing, so that's a big deal. Then there's the third one. Am I going to let you have a chance to talk?
No, that's what I was going to ask. What's the third one? I want to hear more.
So the third one is quite surprising. There's oftentimes an executive or anybody who's starting to use social in an active way isn't sure what it is that they have to say that's going to be interesting. And we find this in our everyday lives, sometimes when we think about ourselves, it's so much easier for us to praise and give credit and see the positive in other people and what's interesting, but oftentimes when we look in our own lives, we find gaps and, well, I'm not that interesting, right? I'm just a boring person. And what you find is that no, there are so many things about the decision-making process that you use to get to this point in your life that people find fascinating. And basically, all of us like to be heroes in our own story, but we don't like to necessarily toot our own horn. And so what I do is I help them become comfortable in having a conversation about themselves, not in a self-promotional way. This is really hard. So if you're working with one of your executives, that's what you have to be aware of, is that they're going to be concerned with, I don't want to appear that I'm the whole Kardashian thing. Social media has been dominated by the personality, right, so much that they forget that, no, you can go out there and be authentic, which is key. Don't be having somebody else pretend to tell your life story out there, but be engaged and active. So that's where we're seeing those three things, and it's really come to the forefront. Like I said, even just with this election, we've seen such a dramatic awareness level raised because we saw what happens when that tool is used for good or evil and the influence that it can have.
No, I love it. So I hope all the people, we don't know if the executives are watching, love you guys and gals, but also the people who handle and work with them. It's an opportunity.
Well, also because you are working for a company that has an executive and you're wondering why aren't they on social, right? You're wondering. And then you start, like I said, then you're starting to wonder, well, do they not get it? Are they unaware of it? And so my answer is that find ways to help them understand that, one, they got to take the time to learn, and sometimes in your capacity, you have the ability and the time, they don't have the time to learn. So be patient, but also find those ways to engage. They will respond, and what's amazing is that you can go out on social today and engage with some of the top leading executives around the world who are on social, and they'll engage back. And so realize that that's kind of what they're going through, so don't sell them short, and then find ways to help and engage and be part of their support network.
I love it. Thank you so much, Richard.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Amy.
We'll see you next time on Pop-Up Tech Talks.